Well, good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
It's Monday morning. It is almost fall. Not quite. It doesn't feel like fall.
Sure doesn't here.
It's going to be 95 today.
Yeah.
And it's hot, humid. Doesn't feel like fall. Let's talk about the markets. The markets have been recovering. They're not on fire yet. People believe they're on fire in some cases.
Well, prices are going up a little bit, but the volumes are down because of the interest rates, and there's just no big push. Unemployment is still very, very bad. New jobs were up, but not enough, so still everything's flat.
It's sort of like getting over a sickness and you're not well yet, but you feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, well, you're not as sick.
Exactly, but you feel better, okay?
Right.
You've stopped the big upheaval and you feel a lot better.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
Just
not well yet.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, we've been talking about, a lot of topics that have come out in the last few days, one of which is the reduction of the Fannie Freddie loan limits, one of which is regulation, and just for our listeners out there, some that may not be involved in origination, the loan limits for most parts of the country are at $417,000. And when we had the crisis, the recession, the Great Recession it's being called, they raised those loan limits because Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie were the only players in the market.
Right. And now they pulled it back to 417, but now there was an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that they're going to lower those conforming limits effective January 1st. We don't know how much they're going to lower them, but they're going to lower them somewhere after that.
So one of the ways of scaling back the GSEs, primarily
Right.
Fannie and Freddie, is to simply lower the loan limits.
Lower the loan limits and increase the G fees. Start motivating people to start putting that into private investors.
Well, there was an article last week in the Journal, maybe the week before, I lost track of time. And the discussion was around the rates on jumbos are now to the point where they're about equal to less than they are on the GSE loans.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, banks want to loan money to those credit-worthy borrowers
Right.
for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's unprecedented as far back as I can remember. It's always the case that the jumbos are much higher. But, interest rates are going up. There's a lot of demand for new loan volume.
Right.
The jumbos have typically very creditworthy borrowers, and so it sort of flipped the scenario.
It has. So how do you think all that shakes out?
Well, it's the old joke about if you could forecast the interest rate.
You wouldn't be here, right? Yeah,
right. Clearly at some point the Fed is going to stop buying all these mortgage-backed securities. People keep speculating about that, when that's going to be. There was some speculation it would happen beginning in September. Now most of the speculation is that it's going to be in December before they start winding that down. As a result, the interest rates dropped a little bit on the 10-year. Probably we'll see some impact on the mortgage rates, but by and large, mortgage rates and interest rates are going to go up.
Well, if you were in control, you were chair of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, and your term was coming to an end, would you say, I'm out of here, or would you, and let your successor solve the problem,
Right.
or would you start that in motion?
I think that he's going to start it in motion, but it'll be toward the end of his term. But I don't think that that really has an impact on the decision. I think he really is looking at the economy and trying to decide when the best time to do that is. And that may be, honestly, maybe until next year sometime.
So it may be after his exit.
It may be, because the economy is just weak, and it continues to be weak, and there's just no indication that it's going to change. And then if this fall we have issues with legislating a new budget for the federal government or raising the borrowing limits, it can make it much weaker.
Well, the sequester has had an impact on growth.
Right, a definitely negative impact on growth.
So most economists say about 0.4%
Yeah,
GDP.
it's hard to estimate that, but
Well,
certainly some.
never for
Yeah.
economists. They've
Yeah.
never had trouble estimating that. They've had trouble being correct.
Well, that's
They've
it.
had trouble estimating.
But anyway, yeah, it's been a bit of a problem, and I don't see that changing. I mean, that we've got a dysfunctional legislature in the U.S. right now, and as a result, it's not going to improve the economy. So, what's that going to do for mortgage rates? Well, it's pretty much we're going to be in a stable situation.
Does the Middle East situation impact oil prices, slow down GDP?
It could. I mean,
The president continues to seek congressional approval for the Syrian crisis.
but you know, we don't know to what extent that's going to impact. I mean, they basically say it's going to be a surgical strike, and that there are going to be no troops on the ground, and it's just going to be
Oil prices
chaos.
have spiked a little.
Yeah, and so that's only because of the uncertainty. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. If it is a limited strike, it'll probably have a short-term rise in the interest rates and then on prices, and then it'll drop off.
You have a fall in interest rates, but as people have a flight to quality. Although we have not seen a real flight to quality, we've seen more domestic association with the level of interest rates.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the way it's going to stay right now. I mean, I don't think people are. First of all, there's no appetite in this country right now for getting involved in another war, right? I mean, you've seen that.
All political parties.
All political power across the board, and
It's expensive.
it's expensive. We made a bad mistake in the last two that we've gotten involved in, and so people are very cautious about that, very concerned, and that's going to, if nothing else, limit most likely the degree to which we get involved. So.
Well, let's shift gears a moment and talk about the effect of regulation on real estate. We had some folks from Texas.
Right.
You know, people from Texas always want to crow about Texas.
Well, you know, there has been a lot of talk about the reason that Texas didn't have the same bubble and crash that everyone else had is because of that strong Texas economy.
Now, for you listeners out there, we say things about Texas with some trepidation because this week Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, plays the University of Texas.
Right.
And so we have some reservation about saying anything negative about Texas.
Texas actually came through things pretty well.
They did.
They did. And there's a...
Of course, they had that little oil and gas issue that helped them out a lot.
That helped a little bit. But, you know, there's a paper that was just published by the Dallas Fed that says, okay, let's look at the reasons why they didn't have the same impact that the rest of the country had. And they talk about several things. One is the fact that there's no land pressure in Texas. You can continue to expand widely, and so land is available, so you don't have that price pressure that you do in other parts of the country.
So it didn't go up as fast and didn't come down as
Right.
fast, okay?
But they said that actually there's something else that may have a much bigger effect, and that is that, let's see, 1876, there's a constitutional amendment in Texas, on the Texas Constitution, that says that there would be no cash-out refis. So that meant that you could only use a equity loan for improving your property,
Right.
making repairs. And then in 1997, they changed that, they modified it slightly to allow a closed-end second, okay?
But it couldn't exceed 80%, I believe.
That those combined loans
Right.
could not exceed 80%.
That's correct.
And as a result, you didn't have so many people that were underwater when the prices started coming down. So therefore, you did not have a lot of the foreclosures. In fact, subprime underwater borrowers were 40% less than the national average in Texas. And the large part that they feel is that's because of that requirement that the CLTV not exceed 80%.
It almost sounds like there might be an answer in search of a question, because if we go back in the 80s, we did have the problem with Texas housing values, and most of it was commercial driven,
Right.
admittedly, but we had trouble with Texas real estate values, and they were purely driven by oil and gas.
Right, right.
And so there may be a few other issues there.
There are, and this is one sample. I mean, you don't have a comparison really with anyone else, but it is interesting to see that speculation and to see whether or not regulation may actually have some sort of a positive impact on some of these bubbles and crashes.
Well, we're out of time today. You all have a fantastic remainder of your summer. I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. This is FNC's Morning View.